Shalom Mishpacha, it's Courtney, America's Jewish mother, and I am here on Saturday with the Friday reads that I was supposed to do yesterday, but could not get it together to do. I don't know what it was about yesterday, but I was just full of angst and existential dread about the world, and about the United States, etc., etc., so I just really could not get it together to do anything yesterday. Couldn't grade, didn't do any yoga, couldn't film my Friday Reads video. The only things I really did were I took Char on her daily stay-approved walk and did manage to go out to CVS to buy my mother a birthday card and cooked dinner. And that was pretty much all I did yesterday besides read and watch a bunch of BookTube videos. So yeah. I don't know what it is, but the struggle is real sometimes, and you know, if you also have lately, or if you will shortly in the future, you know, kind of get yourself into a funk about the state of things, especially if you live in the United States, just know that that is normal. We're all still kind of in survival mode. Grief is a non-linear process. I think grief over the lack of normalcy and the desire to return to normalcy. So anyway, just, you know that it's not just you. So anyway, so here I am with Friday Reads, Saturday edition. So I finished 3 books in the past week. I am currently reading 3 books, so let's get into it. So the first book I finished this past week was Born to Kvetch, Yiddish Language and Culture in All of Its Moods, by Michael Wex. This started out pretty good for me because Wex was talking about the history of Yiddish as a language, and basically his central premise here is that Yiddish is a language of complaint, as implied by the title, Born to Kvetch. Kvetch is Yiddish for complain. And yeah, so that was interesting, but then it kind of quickly became tedious because every single chapter, he would just talk about a variety of Yiddish words related to food or love or death or, you know, some other topic, and he would go into these long etymological explanations for where the words came from, and it just became tedious because it was just one after the other after the other, and there was really, I didn't feel like something tying everything together except for the premise that A, Jews like to complain, and B, that Yiddish kind of developed in order to be exclusive to Jews and exclude everyone else, you know, exclude Gentiles, and particularly exclude Christians. And I just felt like that wasn't a strong enough premise to hold the whole book together. Also, Wex tries to be funny in this book, but it's very Borscht Belt kind of humor in the sense of, take my wife, please, which I don't think is funny. He's also writing for an audience of people who are around the same age as he is, and I'm pretty sure he was in his, you know, late 60s when this book came out, and I think it came out in 2006 or something like that. But yeah, he just makes references to these things that are super old, like the whole, like, you know, his entire readership is supposed to understand what he's talking about. Like he made some reference to, I don't remember what it was called now, but it was I looked it up on Wikipedia, and it was a kids cartoon show that aired from 1965 to 1968. And he referenced some character that appeared on that show, like, oh yeah, doesn't everyone know who this, you know, obscure character who appeared on a children's cartoon show for 3 or 4 years in the 1960s. Doesn't everyone know who that is? So I just feel like if you're going to write a book that is meant to appeal to a wide readership, you have to have some sense of audience awareness. You can't just be writing for an audience of people who have all the same exact history and cultural references as you do. So yeah. And so I think this is not a good book to read unless you are just super into Yiddish and or etymology, or you're in the intended audience for whom Wex is writing, which is basically Jews born before 1965. So I ended up giving this 2.5 stars, and it was definitely a little bit of a disappointment because, like I said, it started out good for me, but then it just quickly became tedious and a slog. Oh, the other thing I'll say about this is I think this is also a book that you should not try to just read it all, you know, within a week to 10 days or something like I did. I think it's a book that is probably better read at a much slower pace where you're just kind of dipping in and out of it. I think that would probably also make it a little bit more interesting and enjoyable because, again, it just got tedious hearing. And then this phrase, and then this phrase, and then this phrase, over and over and over again. So yeah, 2.5 stars. The next book I finished in the past week was The Refugees by Viet Nguyen. This is a short story collection that Nguyen published in 2017. It has 8 stories in it. All of them are related in some way to Vietnam and or refugees, as implied by the title. And this edition, I don't know if all the editions of this book have this too, but this edition of the book has 2 brief essays at the end by Nguyen that were originally published elsewhere. I quite like the 2 essays. Of the 8 short stories in this collection, 2 of them I thought were very strong, and those were a story called War Years and one called Fatherland. And the thing that those 2 stories have in common is both of them involve 2 characters who kind of, or at least like one character who kind of thinks that they know what someone else's experience of the world is, but then learns that they actually have no idea what that person's experience of the world is. And I liked that because I feel like in a short story, you have a concentrated amount of space and you don't have a lot of time for character development. I mean, obviously I think it's good to have character development in a short story, but I think you have to have more to your short story than just, oh, here's a picture of this character. Like, that character has to learn something or grow in some way, and I really think that is the key to writing a successful short story, at least in my reading of them. So those 2 stories I thought were the strongest, and then there were 2 other stories, The Americans and Black-Eyed Women, that I thought were good, and they had kind of potential, but they didn't quite succeed at that goal that I set of, like, letting the characters, or like one of the main characters, grow or learn something or really develop in some way. And then the other 4 stories I just found kind of forgettable. So I ended up giving this 3 stars overall. It's fine. It's not, I didn't think it was great. I didn't think it was terrible. But, you know, read it for yourself because it's very likely that what is resonant to me might not be resonant to someone else. And, you know, there might be other stories in here that I didn't find particularly memorable that you might connect to. So I don't think it's a bad book. I just don't think it's a great book either. So I would call this, as I said in my September wrap-up, it's an inoffensive read. So 3 stars. The last book I finished this week was Daniel Silva's Prince of Fire, which is the 5th in the Gabriel Allon series. So I've talked about this before on my channel. So Gabriel Allon is this ex-Israeli, he's an Israeli ex-Mossad agent who is an art restorer by trade, but keeps getting sucked back into missions for the office for one reason or another. And this time he kind of finds himself at the center of this terrorist conspiracy, and he winds up getting used as a pawn in it. And this book really centers on the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, which his first book, The Kill Artist, also did, but the next 3 books in the series, 2 through 4, all focused on the sort of unfinished business of the Holocaust. But this goes back to kind of the same ground that he starts off with in The Kill Artist. It also, like The Kill Artist, features Yasser Arafat as a character, which I thought was quite interesting. And I do think Silva is a little bit more nuanced here with his exploration of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. You have a lot more opportunities to hear the quote-unquote Palestinian side of things, although Silva is pretty much always going to be more sympathetic to Israel than he is to the Palestinian cause. That's just how he is in these books. So just know that going in if you want to read this. Also, this is just good as kind of a spy thriller book. It's very fast paced, and you know, it's a page turner. So I think I read this whole thing in, you know, maybe like 4 days or something like that. So yeah, quick read, interesting. Definitely wanted to find out what was going to happen. Took a few kind of unexpected turns that I didn't see coming, so that's always interesting. So I ended up giving this 3.5 stars. So on to my current reads. So I'm still doing my buddy read of Love in the Time of Cholera by Gabriel Garcia Marquez with Greg of Supposedly Fun. I need to catch up for our check-in tomorrow. I'm currently on page, I think, 165. This book continues to defy both Greg's and my expectations of it. We kind of, I think, go into each section, you know, when we start reading, I think we both kind of have the same experience of, oh, okay, well, I think I see where this is going to go, and then no, it doesn't do that. So I kind of like that Marquez is keeping me on my toes, although there have been at least 2 times in this book so far that Fermina, the main female character, has made a decision, and it seems like there was not really any sort of exploration for why she made the decision. It was just, nope, this is how it is now. And that sort of frustrates me because I want to know what her reasoning is. And I really hope we're going to find out by the end, because if we don't, I'm going to be not happy about that. But I am still enjoying this. It's definitely still holding my attention. I also recently started my buddy read of Louise Erdrich's The Plague of Doves with Lindsay of Lindsay's Book Life. I am 30 pages into this. We're supposed to check in about it tomorrow. I still need to read about 12 more pages. And I like this so far. I don't have a lot of thoughts about it because I am only 30 pages into it. That starts off very dark, but then, you know, kind of goes into a little bit more lighter and humorous situations. There was a, scene I just read this morning about this priest who comes to this native family's house, and he's basically, you know, saying that they need to come to mass and, you know, confess their sins and blah blah blah, and these 2 older men in the house are acting like they don't know what he's talking about, and they're just kind of trying to get his goat, and it's really funny. Like, so he keeps coming up with you know, things that they might need to confess, like, well, you know, what if you've taken the Lord's name in vain? And they're like, oh, we would never, you know. And then he's like, well, you know, you could also have had impure thoughts. And then they're like, well, wait, what do you mean impure thoughts? We don't know what that is. And I'm trying to get him to, like, be very explicit by what he means about impure thoughts, and it's just funny. So anyway, so I am enjoying this so far, and yeah, I will let you know when I have more to say about it. And then the last book that I'm currently reading is Hope and Other Dangerous Pursuits by Laila Lalami, and this is her debut. I mean, I guess it's technically a novel, but again, it's one of those, like, it's really more a series of interconnected short stories like Love Medicine or The Women of Brewster Place. So I kind of just want to call it stories, even though it's technically a novel. But I quite like this. I'm already, I think, over halfway through it. It starts off with the depiction of the escape or journey of a number of people in a boat from Morocco to Spain. They're trying to cross the Strait of Gibraltar and get over to Spain so that they can, you know, all find some kind of work or refuge in Spain and then send money back to their families in Morocco. And then the next part of the book that I just finished reading delves more deeply into the before stories of 4 of those people on the boat. And so with each story, you come to understand what that person's situation was in Morocco and why they were sort of led to the decision to pay a large sum of money to this man to illegally cross them from Morocco to Spain and, you know, hope to start life anew over there. And it's quite interesting. And really the second story in the book in particular, called The Fanatic, which is about a secular Muslim man who is really concerned about his teenage daughter and that she's becoming more involved in Islam in a religious sense, and that it's sort of fueling political fanaticism, and that that's being caused by this girl that she knows at school. So that's kind of the central focus of that story, and I really loved that story. I thought it was very layered. It talks about, it kind of highlights both religious fanaticism, but also kind of the fanaticism of this girl's father. I mean, she's a teenager. She's probably just going through a phase, you know? But her father is sort of very fanatical about her not seeing his friend anymore. And then the other thing the story does that I thought was really smart is it highlights hypocrisy amongst both religious and secular people. And basically this idea that we're willing to be hypocritical to our stated value system as long as it's for someone who's on our side, whatever that side is. So yeah, I really like that story. I wish I could teach it this semester. I'm probably going to end up teaching the first story about the people illegally crossing from Morocco to Spain, because I think that one is sort of more self-explanatory. But The Fanatic is one where I want to be able to have good conversations with my students about it, because it's the kind of story that I don't think they can just read and get all the nuances on their own. So I hope to be able to teach that in a future semester when we're not doing weird hybrid classes. So yeah, anyway, really liking this so far. So yeah, that's everything that I either finished this week or I'm currently reading. I hope y'all are doing well. And I hope you are doing good reading. Thank you for watching this. Let me know if you have thoughts about any of these books down in the comments below. And until next time, would it kill you to call your mother?